today's episode sparks any new ideas in you, please hit follow and leave a quick review for me. So I read every single one, and it helps us to get more eyes on all this great conversation we're having. On to the episode.
Action is where it's at. You can read all day, but as soon as you start doing something, you're just going to have problems that you didn't anticipate.
Welcome to another incredible episode of Purpose Driven Progress. As always, I'm your host, Jacob Hicks. And guys, I got to really tell you, I've got a really great guest today. So I've got Nick Barrett, the founder and creator of CordBrick. Nick, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jacob. Glad to be here.
Yeah, man, really glad to have you. So, and I'm sure you kind of iterated this quite a bit in the past. But I mean, tell for some of our listeners that may not know who you are, tell us a little bit about who you are and what CordBrick is.
Sure, I'm a 38-year-old first-time entrepreneur. Launched CordBrick about 5 years ago. And just, had a simple problem and decided to create a product, something I'd never done before. So, everything was new for me getting started in the process. Just a little bit about my backstory. I graduated from Penn State, participated in an entrepreneurship boot camp when I was pursuing my MBA and won third place and $5,000 from that. And kind of that was where I got my start doing entrepreneurial type activities and kind of believing that being an entrepreneur was maybe something in the cards for me in the future. And then, we hit a million in sales last year and launched our second product, Brick. So that's kind of the quick view of where we are.
I love it, man. Well, congratulations on hitting $1 million in sales. That's a huge deal. So I want to kind of start at the beginning here a little bit because, a lot of folks that listen to the show, they are entrepreneurs in, some form or fashion. So, being an entrepreneur for as long as you've been, what kind of led you to the decision to kind of make the leap into being an entrepreneur full time?
Oh man, failing in a lot of other jobs. I think is probably the first answer to that. My first couple jobs out of college, I remember distinctly thinking like, man, if the owner of the company would just listen more to me,
we all felt that.
So much better. Yeah, and I think like most entrepreneurs, they kind of think like, I've got a vision for how things should be. And then I think I can explain how to execute that and get us there. I think also probably most entrepreneurs are somewhat of perfectionists. And so they see the problems that are occurring and kind of think here, I have a solution to that.
I love that, man. So I'm really curious too, because I at least in my, in my personal journey as an entrepreneur and in a lot of discussions I've had with other entrepreneurs, like the mindset piece, I feel like, at least in my opinion, I think that's kind of the most critical part because I think you always start like either win or lose in your mind first before anything else gets started, right? So, how do you feel like you've dealt with self-doubt or any of like the struggles you've come across in your time as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I started with tons of self-doubt. I'm 8 years sober from alcohol, and Congrats. I think, before then I had tons of that, just those negative feelings going around in my head all the time. Didn't think I was worth very much. Didn't get paid a lot from other companies, so didn't have very many reasons to think that I was extremely valuable. But I would say the entrepreneurial journey has been kind of one step of building confidence after another, and it has made me, more confident than I've ever been, and just, learning new things, accomplishing things I never thought I would have fairly quickly has led to what I feel like is a tremendous boost in my confidence over the last 5 years.
I love that, man. Well, congratulations on the sobriety. So that's really fantastic.
Thanks.
So a couple of things I wanted to dive into here. So when you're talking about, like the CordBrick especially, and I know like a lot of this, like as we all know as entrepreneurs, if anybody's in the business world, like we're always learning all the time, right? And a lot of times it's like hard and fast pivots. You're like, okay, well that didn't work on social media or whatever it is, so I've got to try something different. So when it comes to, building out like a product or a feature, what like signals do you feel like you need to prioritize early on?
So for me, the thing was I'm experiencing this problem and I think I have an idea that's different than what currently exists. And I think I've heard from other entrepreneurs that you really have to experience the problem yourself, at least in your first business. It's very difficult to try to solve a problem for someone else and create an effective solution for them because there's so many different things that are, going into their thought process of what features they want out of it, what they expect to pay for it, what the actual problems are. Maybe they'll tell you there's a certain problem, but the problem is actually something else. And for me, I really wanted to, when I looked at the other options available for the problem that I was experiencing, I immediately thought, how can I create myself a competitive advantage? How can I, do something different with what I'm doing that sets me apart from the competition? And so I'm sure that's, something that just about every entrepreneur has realized is the thing exactly that I want does not exist.
Right.
And you can maybe put a little bit more thought into like, okay, well, it would also be cool if it had this, that, or the other thing. And so I just did some basic product research. Just looked on Amazon and looked at what the problems were with the existing solutions. Looking at the 1-star reviews mainly.
Okay.
Seeing like, what do people really not like about this product or that product? And so, okay, how could I do something different that wouldn't, they wouldn't have the same problem with? And so for example, adhesive cord holders, a lot of people, they'll buy them and try them, but they'll have problems with the adhesive. It will come off too easily. It will damage their furniture when it does come off. It'll leave some sticky residue. Just it's very limiting. Just does one thing. If you want to move where you're holding the cord or something like that, then you got to put another one down. You can't like re-stick it somewhere else. So, and then for the other weighted cord holders, which were very limited when I started, now there's a couple of them. They just did one thing. And so people were like, okay, it's great, but that's it. It just kind of sits there,
Right.
So I try to create something that kind of stays with your cord all the time and has additional phone uses too. And so those things kind of set my product apart from the others.
I love that. Well, and something I want to kind of dive into a little bit more is like the iteration piece, right? Where I feel like, business as always, as we all know, is very much experimentation, where you're trying something, figuring out, see if it works. It doesn't work, we try something different, right? So, what has been like kind of your mindset, or like what went into the decision to develop, a wider range of products from the original CordBrick, like the desk brick and the glow in the dark one you have now?
Well, I think I would actually back up to the manufacturing.
Okay.
At first I tried to go right to a manufacturer without some, real prototyping. I'd bought like modeling clay at Michael's and like hand molded one that was, rubbery silicone.
Yeah.
And then I tried to 3D print one, and it was hard plastic. There weren't really like silicone printers at the time. They kind of just came out, honestly.
Okay.
And then the first design that I had, I worked through it with a manufacturer. And I think the thing that most people don't realize about manufacturers is they're not designers.
Yeah.
They don't care about the aesthetics. They just care about the makeability. Can we make it? How difficult is it going to be to make? What's the cost going to be? And while those are important things to consider, I think having the full design aspect and the look and feel and then the functionality of the design is extremely important. And so it does take a good bit of prototyping. And after my first design failed, basically, and I had to throw away the mold and a bunch of material I'd bought, I kind of went back to square one, and I started doing that prototyping again. And we tested a bunch of different things on every model. Like with my product, what we were able to do was we were able to actually design each different channel a little bit differently on a prototype model, so that could do just one prototype, and I could test a bunch of different ways and thicknesses of the entry point where the cord goes in, the little tapering that kind of goes on either side of the middle, how narrow it gets, how deep the channel is from the top of the brick, so how much resistance you have when you're pulling it in and out. Like these are very small details,
Right.
but actually they matter a lot in the daily usability, and then eventually like the star rating, of the customers online. When it came to additional products after that, I had heard from some people that they were looking for something a little heavier than CordBrick. Now, a lot of people do like the lightweight of it, and I kind of made it the minimum viable product, right? The lightest, cheapest possible thing I could, because I realized that there was going to be some incremental, trade-off of, okay, once it gets a good bit heavier, people just aren't going to pay a lot more for it, even if it costs me a lot more. So I got to keep my costs down. And that was, also one reason I tried to start in the USA was I need to add a little bit more value than some of these people somehow, because I'm competing with China, and they compete on price. And so they're going to destroy me on price. So what can I do? I can add features, and I can, maybe add made in the USA. I didn't end up being able to do that. I ended up going to China eventually to create the product, but I had to get that cost down, and I didn't want to get it too high. But with Desk Brick, it was added weight, and then I had seen that people appreciated the phone stand use of CordBrick. The issue is that you've got to spin the product and turn it, and so you got to kind of remove some of the cords to be able to do the phone use. And so what I did was I just flipped the channels 90 degrees, which actually is still within my original utility patent, and was able to protect my next product, Desbrick, with the same intellectual property, and then add a little bit to that on a continuation patent.